Over the years, I've participated in many of the online discussion boards concerning vintage radio and television, and one of the questions I've seen come up several times is, when was the last tube radio made and what model was it? And I think what they mean by that is, when was the last plain Jane consumer grade tube radio produced that one might buy to put in the kitchen or bedroom, etc. I realize that, a lot of communications equipment and hi-fi equipment is actually still being produced using vacuum tubes to this day. But anyway, I think it would be a little difficult to pinpoint an exact year or an exact model of which was the last tube radio. But I think this Zenith that you see before you is pretty close to the end. This is a 1969 Zenith AM/FM clock radio that uses tubes. And over the years I've looked through some catalogs and such, and the first solid state AM/FM table radios hit the market around 62, I think, somewhere in that neighborhood, but they were very expensive in comparison to the more popular tube radio. But by around 65 or 66, solid state table radios had dropped considerably in price, so therefore they started outnumbering the tube sets. But there were still some tube sets made in the later 60s. I know in the Radio Shack catalog in 1967, they still offered a good many tube sets. But by 68, I think there was only one tube radio listed. And like I said, this Zenith radio is from 69. I just got it off of eBay. It's in kind of rough shape. It's missing one of the clock knobs, and the top's kind of scratched up a little bit. And really the only reason I got this is because of what it is. And here's the proof that it's a 69 model. Don't know how well the camera is focusing in on that, but the model number is Z374, and the chassis number is 7Z03. And you can see what all's written on the back there, maybe. And looking at the bottom, there's a label on the bottom that has the model and serial number on it. And it looks like this was an older model that they scratched through and wrote in the letter Z there in place of the original prefix, whatever that was. But Z does indicate that this radio was made for the 1969 model year. So let's open this up and see what the inside looks like. Okay, here it is with the back removed. As you can see, it's very, very dusty inside. This radio uses a silicon rectifier diode instead of a selenium rectifier like what the older ones used. And I think most of the capacitors are probably ceramic disc, so they should be reliable. Looks like it's got mostly Zenith tubes still in it, so see if I can find some date codes on the tubes. Okay, this tube has a date code of 1967 on it, which is a little odd considering this is a 69 model radio. Perhaps they had a bunch of old tubes laying around that they wanted to use up, or they could have had a bunch of old chassis laying around that they were trying to get rid of. But one thing I have determined, that by 1970, Zenith was all solid state in terms of their radios. So I think 69 was definitely the last year for a Zenith tube radio, and which consisted of most likely leftover stock on hand in an effort to get rid of old parts. Okay, I was going to try this out and see if it worked, but I don't think that's going to be possible today, because in the process of removing more tubes to look for date codes, I removed the audio output tube, and the tube socket just crumbled to pieces on me. which I'm really not surprised by that. This looks like a very high hour set, and since this is one of the hottest tubes in the radio, then over the years the socket just became brittle and crusty and disintegrated, so obviously that tube socket will have to be replaced before I can go any further with this. There's the tube socket right back there that disintegrated and fell apart on us. I just thought I'd show you that. So we're going to have to table this for a little while until I can come up with a tube socket for it and fix this thing and clean all the dust out of it. Would help tremendously. Okay, there you go, my newest toy, a 1969 Zenith AM/FM tube clock radio. Thanks for watching, and more to come later.